back to the show. This Sunday is the 29th of September. It's also called Michaelmas, is it? What? Did you ever hear of Michaelmas?
No, until
Mr. Shane Lahan
shared.
Shane, great to have you on the show
Great
again.
to be back.
Great to be
I
here.
think we touched on this briefly last year. It's the first time we've heard about it.
Well, you know, something we know about Halloween, we know about Bridget's Day, we know about all those. Perhaps we'd even know Christmas is a solstice and bonfire nights and John's Eve. Patrick's Day is the equinox. We're now on the other side.
The other side of it.
And this is Michaelmas.
So,
and perhaps of all the festivals, this is the least known, perhaps least sort of remembered, we'll say.
And where does the name come from?
It comes from St. Michael. Michael was the great archangel. You'll have to remember, he was revered in all the most extreme points all over Europe. High mountaintops. Over in Normandy, we have Mont Saint-Michel. Off by Cornwall, we have St. Michael's Mount. And of course, in Ireland, we have the best of all, which is Skellig Michael. So these are these extreme points where this archangel, this head of the celestial army, he was revered, and we revered him particularly on the 29th of September.
How come we've forgotten about him in one sense?
Well, I suppose in a way it was an English festival, because still, I suppose some of the Anglo-Normans would have brought him in. Remember, we were all controlled by the same system for many, many years. So Michaelmas was a time of paying rents, it was a time of settling contracts, people's wages were paid. It was the end of the agricultural year, if you like.
The harvest was in.
Yeah, the harvest was in. It was the end of harvest. Everything was finishing at this point in time.
Wow.
And you know, it was the start of, let's say, the hunting season. So stopping the agriculture, if you like, and now you have to go back to gathering
pleasure
and so on.
for some people,
all of that sort of idea. So it is forgotten because the systems have changed.
And it was a natural breaker in the era, as you said there, Shane. Agriculture, all the harvesting, okay, time to get out and about now.
But I suppose one of the nicest memories I have is my own mother, Eleanor. She used to tell us that every 29th of September, her uncle Paddy lived down in Ballybeg between Bruff and Kilmallock and County Limerick, and they used to send up a goose for Michaelmas. And the big tradition, one of the things that people might remember, was the Michaelmas goose. And the reason for that was because all the geese were fattening on the stubble. They were out in the stubble, geese out in the grain, picking all the little grain that had been left after the harvest. And you always killed your first goose on the 29th of September. And you partook of that because if you did, it would give you luck and prosperity for the rest of the year. And lots of people didn't have their own geese, and the people who did would have come along, they would have killed a goose. They often had a thing called giving hand, where they would, someone would be a draw, and a woman would get the chance of giving geese to all the poorer people around. If you had a goose, you always kept a bit of it and gave it to everyone else.
You passed it on.
Passed it on.
But the feathers as well, they were very special.
Oh my goodness me, I was thinking about feathers, you know. You think geese are important for eating. Geese were kept for one thing, and one thing really only, and that was for feathers. And you know what, all the geese are now white. In the past they were all different colours, but we've bred them white because their feathers were used for mattresses in particular. The old tick mattress. The ticking was the very...
Oh my God, the ticking.
The ticking was the thick cloth.
Yeah,
that was
grey
the
and white
mattress.
kind of thing,
Absolutely stripes on it. But that was very tightly woven, not to let the feathers come through. And people used to pluck the geese.
Goose down as well, of course, is still very famous.
Absolutely, goose down, and then, but this is the best part, okay? They didn't bother killing the geese.
They were still alive.
They used to pluck them when they were alive, and there's loads of accounts. Arthur Young from 1779 used to say he was looking at the Irish geese walking around, looking like real bedraggled, as naked as a plucked goose.
Did the feathers grow back?
Did the feathers grow back?
They did, of course, and they were plucked twice in the year, in July and at Michaelmas.
And not even a panadol given to them, or a paracetamol to eat.
So that's
we treated animal cruelty now.
Well, I suppose we'd be thinking of it differently now, but they were the times, and you know, those mattresses were really important. People left those mattresses in their will. This was something that was incredibly important for people and very much sought after.
Oh my God, I never knew that.
You've shocked us again,
There was another little thing that happened. Not only did you eat the goose on this day, you also had a favourite dish, because this was the end of the potato harvest as well. And then Stompy was one of the dishes that was made.
And you made this yourself?
I did, yeah. And it was interesting. Everyone looked forward to this.
Yeah.
It was made by grating the potatoes.
Raw.
And of course, not only raw, but you had to make your own grater as well. A bit of tin and a nail, hammer it through.
And that's it.
Grate away. day, you'd take out all of the starch, the wet starch.
Okay.
You'd mix up, essentially it was like a pancake mixture, okay, with eggs, flour and water. Put the potatoes in, make it into a dough, and you bake it on the griddle for about a half an hour.
Sounds delicious.
And the butter on that, and the caramelising, oh my goodness.
Was this made all over Ireland, Shane?
All over Ireland.
All
So
over
you have boxties and stompies, but this was a celebratory potato dish. This was especially for occasions like Halloween, like Christmas and so on. Michaelmas, stompie was
Because the first time I heard it, we used to call it stampy at home. But I don't remember anyone actually making. But do you know the song Brian of Vanberger?
Yes,
For stampy agus email. That was the thing. It's part of the song. So that's the first. And then when I saw stamp, I said that's the same thing.
But another one, from your part of the world as well, Daddy, and from all over, was that there was always a big fair at Michaelmas. And, you know, people would come from distances and so on. And the one thing that you would look forward to was what was called the Michaelmas pasty, or the pattern pie. So on the 29th, it was a big fair. Great fair still today in places like Carlow, Kilkenny, that sort of part of the world.
Traditions kept going,
And they still have these pasties here.
And what's inside?
What's inside? It's a little bit like our mince pie at Christmas. There's apple, but there's also mutton. Okay, so these are the mutton pasties that are there. So mutton fat, bits of mutton cut up, along with twice as much apple, lots of sugar or honey or anything like that.
Tasty.
Oh my goodness, they're fantastic. And what happened is they were cold, but you had to have them hot. So there'd be a big pot of broth, of mutton broth, to instead of the microwave, you dip them in,
and you leave them in
there for maybe about 2 or 3 minutes till they all heat up, and take it out with a bowl of broth. People love it.
My mother used to make these at home. We all the neighbours used to make these mutton pies as well. And you know, say if you're
and pastry as well.
If you're a pint or two more, if you come home after a pint or two, that's when you go to the mutton pies.
Absolutely. People, the other little thing to say is that we're in around Blackberry time now. 29th, the puka or the devil, whichever you wish.
We had that at home.
He used to do his business. I won't even go into the detail on the blackberries, but from there on in, it was taboo to eat.
You can't.
No.
I remember my father used to say that to us. Isn't that funny now? It's just
so and even I was picking some of these yesterday. They're all looking fairly bedraggled now and a bit mouldy and all of that. So
but there are loads of them there this year. Loads of blackberries.
A great year for blackberries.
Actually, blackberries were out in July this year. It was strange.
But talking about weather, Michaelmas was another great day for the weather, okay? And what they used to do, a lot of weather predictions on the day. And there was an old phrase, if Michaelmas Day is bright and clear, there'll be 2 winters in the year. So people felt that if it was good weather, it was going to be very cold, or 2 spells of bad weather.
Is it like during the Scalavine on the other side? So there's a particular time of year the Scalavine, and if the weather's bad, then that it's going to be bad for the rest of the year.
There are so many days that you predict the weather, but there was another part of Michaelmas Day that you like, when you had the goose, okay, and you were after eating your goose. You know the breastbone of the goose is quite big. You would hold it up, and you would have a look and see if it was transparent. And if it was transparent, it meant it was good weather. But they'd look, the first part of the breastbone was the start of the year, and the other part was after Christmas. And if one part was opaque and one part was bright, they'd make their weather predictions using the.
We're going to go to Jean Bourne now, and Evelyn Hugh is like up on the
where's your goose bone?
Where's your bone?
It's funny, you know, thinking as well of the lads who were plucking, you know. One of the great things is that a lot of the small feathers used to get caught in your throat. So the one way that the feather merchants and the pluckers, they were looked after, is they were paid in some sort of drink, porter or whiskey or whatever. So
clear
the old throat.
Shane, fair play to you. Thank you so much. I think that's just fabulous. Michaelmas.
I don't know, you're more
Start celebrating.
You're roasting a goose, aren't you?
I am. I'm roasting goose. I always try and uphold the traditions. 29th.
I think I'm going to start this, lads.
You should.
It sounds. I think it's better than Halloween. It's up there with Christmas now.
I'll tell you what the weather's going to be like for the rest of the year.
We do a live Skype to you on Monday.
Thank you, Shane.
Thanks a minute.
Now, competition time for you.